What's going on, YouTube? So this run was filmed in November of 2023 when I was doing various water Pokemon like Seeking, Slowbro, Golduck, and my only custom backport to date Dondozo. And at the time of this run, I thought it would be a toss-up between Seeking and Seadra as to who the worst water Pokemon in Gen 1 would be. In terms of base stats, for a fully evolved Pokemon, Seadra isn't terrible. The 95 defense and special is great, and 85 speed is enough to outspeed everything in the game. Where Seadra tends to fall flat is its move pool. While it is primarily a special attacker, the only special attacking type moves it gets are ice and water moves. And in terms of other attacking moves, it only gets normal type moves. And by level up, there's not much to offer. We don't get another attacking move until level 30 in Water Gun, which we're going to have Bubble Beam well before then. We do get a badge boosting move in Agility, but for a Pokemon like Seadra, I'd rather have something that boosts the better of my defense or special stats, because Agility is arguably the worst badge boosting move in the game. So Seadra and Seeking, they have a lot of similarities. Not a huge move pool, only one badge boosting move. Let's see which one of them is better in this run. Before I continue this run, I'd like to spotlight another solo runner and member of the community, Queen Rena. She's going to be running Seadra in Pokemon Crystal, and if she ever finishes it, what has it been, 9 months now? You should go check it out and give her a follow. She's an active member in Scott's Thoughts community Discord and solo running Discord and places very well during the monthly community races when we run the Gen 2 games. Maybe I'll start posting some Gen 2 content, although I'd want to sink my teeth into Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Alright, back to the run. I'm going to jump cut straight to Brock, and although I've battled the Junior Light Years trainer and the bug catchers, Bubble is so weak it still can't one-shot the Geodude. It can't one-shot Onix either, but it just goes for Bide and surprisingly outspeeds Seadra. Picking it up in Mount Moon where I get bombarded with wild encounters, I'm going to make a beeline for TM12 Water Gun right away. This will give Seadra another attacking option and a slightly stronger move to use than Bubble. I take the Dome Fossil and then I head to Cerulean to take on Misty first. The reason being is that because her AI won't use any of her water moves, and I also thought I would have more of a chance against her than Rival 2's Bulbasaur. Against Staryu, my plan is to hit it with 3 to 4 smoke screens and then just go for Water Gun. Water Gun is a 4-hit KO, and I make it to Starmie with over half of my HP remaining. Unfortunately, even after hitting Starmie with a few smoke screens, it gets lucky early in the battle, and while Water Gun is slowly chipping away at it, my luck fades and it knocks me out. In the next battle, I set up 5 smoke screens on Staryu, which before you comment, yes, I'm aware that the return on investment after 3 isn't really worth it. It also takes 5 water guns before I'm able to move on to Misty's Ace once again. I set up 5 smoke screens on it as well and just start chipping away with Water Gun, which it takes a total of 10 water guns to knock this thing out. The real prize is the TM for Bubble Beam, which of course I forgot to teach Seadra before the battle against Rival 2. And this battle probably would have gone a lot quicker had I did. Thankfully Pidgeotto doesn't hit me with a sand attack, and Water Gun critting, we're able to knock it out over 2 turns. Abra and Rattata are forgettable at this point, but let's talk about what a juggernaut Bulbasaur is right now. So I just start spamming Smokescreen. Bulbasaur does hit me with Leech Seed, so I am on a bit of a timer. Water Gun thankfully is doing more damage than Leech Seed can heal, and while it's a 1 in 4 chance that Bulbasaur will go for either Vine Whip or Leech Seed, I'm getting extremely lucky when it just keeps picking Leech Seed. While this battle is long, about 2 minutes if you were to slow it down to 1 times game speed, we do make it through Rival 2 on our first try. I'm not going to talk about Nugget Bridge too much, other than I do battle any optional hiker that I can. But one trainer I want to focus on right now is the last before Bill's house. Against her opening Oddish, I misclick Leer and I meant to go for Smokescreen. I want to set up 3 smoke screens on the opening Oddish and the last Oddish and knock them out with Water Gun, which the fact that I've still forgotten to teach Bubble Beam to this point is just painful to watch. Had I taught Bubble Beam and had some better luck against the final Oddish, I think we would have won this one on our first attempt. In the next attempt though, instead of setting up smokescreen, I take just the straight offensive approach and go for water gun, and had I had bubble beam, this would have been a much better and much quicker battle. You'll be happy to hear that after we help out our boy Bill and head to the SSN, I finally do teach bubble beam to Seadra. And while on the SSN, I'm going to take a page out of Scott's Thoughts book. I'm going to battle the Sailor and then pick up the TM for rest, along with picking up an extra ether in the room next door. With a good base defense and special stat, I figured rest could come in handy with our limited move pool. And while I'm not going to teach it right away, at least I finally taught Bubble Beam for Rival 3. His opening Pidgeotto misses its sand attack, and Bubble Beam is able to knock it out over 2 turns. Against the Raticate, I get a critical hit, knocking it out in 1 hit. Kadabra is knocked out over 2 turns with Bubble Beam as it just goes for Teleport. And against Ivysaur, I'm going to set up Smokescreen because Leech Seed and Vine Whip could be dangerous. Thankfully, my first Bubble Beam crits, and it's just 2 more to knock it out. Following Rival 3, we're going to do what I considered risky back in November and take on Lieutenant Surge right away. We barely missed the one-shot range with Bubble Beam, as he uses an X speed and hits us with Sonic Boom since he now outspeeds us. Bubble Beam will one-shot Pikachu, but we can't take a Thunderbolt from Raichu. Thankfully for me, Surge's AI is terrible as he just uses an X speed and Thunder Shock. And to this point, I was very surprised with Seadra's performance. It's actually pretty well despite a very limited move pool. And remember earlier in the run when we kind of struggled against the lass outside of Bill's house? Well, there's one more lass that is usually a problem for Pokemon in these runs pending, and that's the Rapping Lass on the way to Rock Tunnel. I get lucky and this battle's actually a first try victory. I go with the strategy of brute forcing my way with Bubble Beam. And although the second Bellsprout does poison me and it does hit me with Wrap, and I was a little worried at this point, we get through this one. We're going to make quite the bit of a jump cut and pick this up in Celadon City, where after I head to the game corner and battle Giovanni, Seadra's going to get quite an upgrade. And say it with me 4 times. Bubble Beam, Bubble Beam, Bubble Beam, Bubble Beam. That's all it takes for this battle is 4 Bubble Beams. I mentioned that Seadra can get an upgrade, and that upgrade is very obvious. We're going to go to the top floor of the department store, buy a freshwater and give it to the little girl, and get the TM for Ice Beam, which I can't get right now because I don't have enough room in my inventory, but after I toss a Pokeball, now we can get Ice Beam. I buy 3 calcium to further boost our special, and then I head to Pokemon Tower to face Rival 4 with a shiny new moveset. I have Ice Beam for super effective damage on the Pidgeotto, and I have now taught Rest to Seadra. Ice Beam is also the best option against Gyarados, which is a 3-shot on it, although it does hit me with Dragon Rage, essentially cutting my HP in half. But I have nothing to worry about because I have super effective damage on 2 of his remaining 3 Pokemon. Against the Growlithe, I can one-shot it with Bubble Beam, and while Kadabra does withstand a Bubble Beam, it just hits me with Confusion, not doing a lot of damage. And his final Pokemon is Ivysaur, which I'm just going to one-shot with Ice Beam. Despite the limited move pool, Seadra has 1 reset to this point, and the difficulty of the rival battles are just going to ramp up from here. But after Pokemon Tower, we have to decide where to go next. Logically, it would make sense to go to Koga and get the Soul Badge so that we can use Surf outside of battle, and then head to Cinnabar to battle Blaine, where getting his badge will give us a boost to our special, and that's exactly what I end up doing. I do pick up the rare candy and the PP up on Cycling Road, and looking back on this footage, it is from November 2023 granted, I should have probably battled some additional trainers here. Upon arriving in Fuchsia, I immediately go through the Safari Zone and get the HM for Surf, which I'm going to put on Seadra's moveset right away. It's now time to take on Koga with our new shiny toy in the form of Surf. It's a 2-shot on the first coughing, which Koga just goes for an X attack. Things start to unravel against Muck, as it poisons me with Poison Gas, and I get a Gen 1 miss with my next Surf. It then starts to set up Minimize and actually disables Rest, but I finally hit it and get a critical hit to knock it out. I really wish Rest wasn't disabled because I'd really like to heal off this poison. I get a critical hit with Surf, knocking out his second coughing, and all that's left is Wheezing. I start by setting up smoke screens on it because I really don't want it to hit me with Sludge or Self-Destruct, which it does hit me with a Sludge, followed by a Self-Destruct, and Seadra goes down. In the next battle, things play out kind of the same as the first. I one-shot the first coughing thanks to a crit. Muck still poisons me with poison gas, but I two-shot it with Surf. And although coughing number 2 tanks a Surf, its sludge only does 16 HP in retaliation. I've made it back to wheezing, but I actually have less HP in this battle than I did in the first one. But lucky for me, my first Surf gets a critical hit, wheezing retaliates with sludge, and I can knock it out on the next turn. So as far as gym leaders we still have to defeat, there's Erica, Sabrina, Blaine, and Giovanni. And I've already said we're going to be battling Blaine next, and it makes the most sense. We can get his badge to boost our special, his gym is a good training spot, which I do a little bit of extra training in his gym. And we're going to go rapid fire here with Blaine followed by Erica. And if you thought Blaine was going to be a one-shot sweep, well, you're almost correct. Surf is able to one-shot the Growlithe, Ponyta, and Rapidash. Arcanine outspeeds and hits me with a pretty hefty takedown. Not once, but twice. But Seadra hangs on, and 2 Surfs, along with recoil damage, are enough to take it out. Now, if you guessed that Erica would be a one-shot sweep, well, you are 100% correct, but we also outlevel her Pokemon by 12 levels. And now it's time for that part of the run I was dreading the most. Silphco and Rival Fivel. I'm only level 43 and I've replaced Rest on my moveset with Agility for badge boosting purposes. I also picked up the TM for Blizzard within Pokemon Mansion, just in case I need something with a bit more oomph for Pidgeot and Venusaur. And really I should throw Gyarados in that conversation too. Ice Beam is able to one-shot Pidgeot, and Gyarados follows. I start by setting up Agility on Gyarados, and I really don't want to see Dragon Rage. My first Ice Beam gets a critical hit as it hits me with a Dragon Rage, bringing me under half health. My next Ice Beam knocks it out, and I have 3 Pokemon left to deal with. Thankfully, the next one is Growlithe, who I can just one-shot with Surf. I was worried about Alakazam in this battle because it could easily crit and knock me out, but we just get it into a healing loop. All that's left is Venusaur, and the gods are looking down on Seadra. While Ice Beam can't get the one-shot, it just goes for Leech Seed. Razor Leaf or even Vine Whip would have easily taken me out. And off topic, I want to say I'm thankful for the Hyper Potion that's in the room right next to the Warp Tile to Rival Fivel. Definitely a time saver than going to the bed to heal. But we can pick this up right at Giovanni, which there's nothing to narrate here. Surf just one-shots his entire team, including the Kangaskhan, which surprised me. We've got 2 gym leaders left before we can take on the league, so let's go ahead and battle Sabrina. And this first battle against Sabrina surprised me, and I played it horribly. I try to set up 3 agilities on the Kadabra for badge boosting purposes, and its first Psychic deals massive damage thanks to a crit and gets a special drop. And there's no coming back from that one as Seadra gets its second loss of the run. In the next battle, I go the straight offensive approach. A combination of Surf and Ice Beam are able to two-shot the Kadabra, and Ice Beam is able to two-shot the Mr. Mime as it just hits me with a weak Confusion. Ice Beam is doing about half to Venomoth, but it hits me with Stun Spore. I take this time to set up Agility, just for some badge boost, and to restore my speed so that I can move first against the Alakazam. Parahax doesn't get me too badly as we knock out the Venomoth, but against Alakazam I actually don't move first, but I do get a critical hit with Surf, putting it in a healing loop and knocking it out. The only gym leader left is Giovanni, and the battle against him in Viridian Gym is no different than the battle against him in Silphco. It's a one-shot sweep on his entire team. I'm a little surprised the Nidos didn't tank at least one Surf, because that seems to be a thing. There are only 6 mandatory battles left for our Dragon Pokemon. Rival 6 tends to be a spot that can be a major hiccup for some Pokemon. Let's see if it's one for Seadra. Well, his first 2 Pokemon, Pidgeot and Rhyhorn, definitely are no problem as they go down in one Ice Beam and Surf. Against Gyarados, I get a lucky freeze with my first Ice Beam, and I would have set up Agility here had I not leveled right after knocking it out. Instead, I'm going to set up Agility on the Growlithe, which further badge boosts me by using Leer, and it sets up 2 Agilities of its own before getting knocked out with Surf. This is where things take a little bit of a turn though. Surf is not able to one-shot Alakazam, as it responds with a massive critical hit Psychic, bringing me to 7 HP. We knock it out the next turn, but Venusaur for sure is going to finish me, unless I one-shot it with Ice Beam. After that critical hit from Alakazam, that for sure looked like it was going to be Seadra's third reset of the run, and I thought I was going to be popping rare candies to level 60 for sure. But we can move on, and now we can talk about the league. It's no secret that Lorelei is by far our worst matchup. We have nothing that can deal super effective or even neutral damage to her Pokemon. Dewgong is going to be annoying with Rest and Takedown, Cloyster's going to be annoying with Spike Cannon, and if I were to ever redo this run, perhaps this is where Rest and Double Edge strats would come into play. I'm not worried about Bruno or Lance. Agatha could be a little trolly, and I thought this was funny. I actually get an encounter here, heading to Victory Road, a Ditto. This also reminds me that I didn't heal after that rival battle, so no additional training in Victory Road for me. I actually did manage to fit in some additional training and picked up that extra rare candy because I felt like Seadra was going to need it. Will any of it help with our battle against the League? Let's find out. So after holding on to Smokescreen for nearly the entire run, I've replaced it with Mimic. I set up an agility and go for Surf, and you see how little it does to Dewgong, who just goes for Rest. Thankfully, a critical hit Surf, along with Dewgong just using Growl, further badge boosting me, were able to knock it out over 4 turns. Surf does just under half to Cloyster, who confuses me with Supersonic, and I hit myself in confusion every single turn. 3 turns in total, so it wasn't too bad. Cloyster does hit me with a Spike Cannon during that time, but the other 2 turns just goes for Supersonic. Next up is Slowbro, and this is the Pokemon that I want to use Mimic on, because I want to take Amnesia. I'm going to set it up fully, and badge boost be damned, because we're going to level after we knock out the Jinx. Even after full setup, it takes 2 Surfs to knock out Slowbro. Jinx is an easy one-shot, and all that's left is Lapras. I get an unlucky crit with my first Surf, and Lapras paralyzes me with Body Slam, and follows it up with a Confuse Ray. This one is a bit of a nail-biter, a close battle because of the Confusion luck and Parahax luck, but thankfully Lapras just doesn't attack me and we get through. Next up is Bruno, and although I do run out of Surfs in this battle because I forgot to use an Elixir after Lorelei, I'm never in any danger of losing. The only one of his Pokemon that deals any damage to me is Hitmonlee, whose Mega Kick does just under 50 HP. And while Machamp had an opportunity to attack me, it just uses Leer. Before the battle against Agatha, I make sure to restore my PP, but I'm also going to pop rare candies to level 60 for the next damage rounding threshold. And my strategy against Agatha is simple. I want to Mimic Hypnosis and fully set up Agility, and hopefully do as much damage as I can with Surf and Ice Beam. Although her opening Gengar does confuse me, I am able to put it to sleep with my first Hypnosis, and I don't hit myself in confusion as I set up 2 Agility. I'm able to 2-shot her Gengar with a combination of Surf and Ice Beam, and then 1-shot Golbat with Ice Beam. Haunter comes out next, and Surf nearly 1-shots it, but she switches into Arbok. Surf does one-shot it, and when Haunter comes back out, I'm able to finish it off, and all that remains is her final Gengar. Instead of putting the Gengar to sleep, I decide to go full offense and hit it with a Surf, which does over half. It hits me with Nightshade, and we're able to finish it on the next turn. Last is Lance, and his most difficult Pokemon is his first Pokemon. I start by using Agility just to further badge boost my special. And thanks to a Leer from Gyarados, Ice Beam is about a 3-hit KO. It does hit me with a Dragon Rage, but I'd rather see that than Hyper Beam. And after I knock it out, the rest of his team is a one-shot sweep. Seadra is moving on to the champion after its first attempt at the league. Before moving on to the champion, I do use a rare candy to bring myself to level 62, along with teaching Blizzard in the place of Ice Beam, along with using the 3 PP ups I've picked up to max it out. And now it's time for our little dragon to close this one out. The battle starts great as I miss my first Blizzard, but thankfully Pidgeot just goes for Sky Attack. We hit our next one, knocking it out. Next up is Alakazam, and I'd really like to see Reflect. Surf does just over half to it, as it hits me with Psychic. Thankfully, it doesn't crit or get a special drop, but my next Surf doesn't knock it out, and it goes for Psybeam, getting a critical hit. bringing me to 6 HP. Now I can't badge boost on the Rhydon, so I've got to one-shot everything from here on out. Man, rest would really come in handy right now. We can one-shot the Rhydon, but next up is Gyarados. Blizzard doesn't get the one hit, but it just goes for Leer, badge boosting me further. I knock it out with my next Blizzard, and thankfully, the champion's last 2 Pokemon, I have attacks that are super effective against them. Surf one-shots the Arcanine, but now I need Blizzard to come and clutch on Venusaur. Blizzard doesn't get the one-shot, and Venusaur uses Mega Drain, knocking me out. I make it back to the champion on my next attempt through the league, and I have a new plan. Against the Alakazam, I'm going to mimic Recover. This way, in case it critically hits me, I can recover against the Rhydon, as long as I make it by the Alakazam. Thankfully, it only hits me with 1 Psybeam as it goes for Recover and Reflect, and we're able to knock it out. With 123 HP, now I can set up on the Rhydon. I set up fully, even getting an extra badge boost from its Leer, recover to full HP, and knock it out with Surf. Gyarados is next, and Blizzard does over half to it, but it retaliates with Hyper Beam, critically hitting me and bringing me to 17 HP. Thankfully, it does have a recharge turn, so I can go for Recover to get back that lost HP and knock it out the next turn with Blizzard. So all that's left is Arcanine and Venusaur, but I'm going to level up after knocking out the Arcanine. This means I need some cooperation from Venusaur. Blizzard does about 3/4, and this time it decides to go for Solar Beam. My next Blizzard connects, and that's the run. And that run overall wasn't bad. The worst part of that run is the early game for Seadra, and I mean the part after Brock, where all you have is Bubble and eventually Water Gun and Bubble Beam as attacking moves. But the question I had at the beginning of the video was, would Seadra be worse than Seeking in a solo run? Well, with this final level in in-game time, it doesn't look like it. It finishes the game at level 64 with a final in-game time of 3 hours and 32 minutes. And on my tier list, this would place Seadra in the top of the B tier, with Pokemon like Charizard, Dugong, Golduck, and one run that I have yet to bring to the channel that's still in that backlog of recorded runs. As always, thank you for the continued support on the channel, and as I just mentioned, I have a lot of backlog Gen 1 runs that I need to go through, including some of the older Sanqui runs that I was just going to delete the footage for, but you guys seem to really like the Rhyperior video when I posted that. If you guys want to see more of those super aged old runs that are probably about a year old at this point, let me know, but I'll catch you in the next one. See you in September when we run Pyroar through Pokemon X.